everybody. So today we're going to be talking about some Watergate, some Richard Nixon's administration. So Richard Nixon, whenever they want to rank presidents, they always put him at the bottom of the list of the worst president ever. And it's because, spoiler alert, he's going to quit the presidency. Now, the events that lead up to that are kind of crazy, and it's why it makes it like the biggest scandal in American history. Of just how it worked out. So we're going to start today understanding that Hitler. I was looking over some other stuff for grad school. Hitler. Nixon's definitely not Hitler. So Nixon is very popular at the time because of what he had done with détente and realpolitik and opening up relations with China and then opening up relations with Russia, and we're not all going to die, and this actually makes him very popular. It's an election year. It's 1972. It's leading up to the election, but Nixon wants to win huge in 1972. He wants a mandate. If you get say he'll win with 65% of the vote. Great. That's a clear-cut victory. But if he can win with like 80% of the vote, that's called having a mandate. It's not like an official thing, but if you have that much support by the American people, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. All right? That's what he wants. He wants more support so he can have more power to do what he wants. So he's going to be real shady here in this election and do some extremely illegal stuff. Stuff he knows is illegal, but he's going to do it anyway because he doesn't think he can get caught. He thinks he's too smart. He's too swift, right? He thinks that he can just get it done and nobody's going to notice because he's smarter than everybody else. Before we get into the details of what actually happens in 1972, let me explain to you how he operates in his administration. Richard Nixon is a jerk, all right? And I have an example here of explaining how much of a jerk that he is. So Nixon is paranoid. He always thinks people are out to get him. All right, he has very low self-confidence, I guess. Not necessarily self-confidence, just maybe anxiety or I don't know, insecurity. Maybe not low self-confidence. He's insecure. He thinks people are out to get him. So growing up, and this is crazy. So people say they do this, but nobody actually does this. Nixon keeps like a list of enemies. And when I say a list, an actual piece of paper with their name written down, like you're on his list. And he's like kept it his whole life. If in third grade you took his lunch money, he's like, your name is on my list. I will get back to you. So Nixon literally has an actual physical list of enemies that he has made throughout his life, people who he feels have wronged him. And he very much believes he's going to use the office of the president to get back at them. He is now the top in the land. He's going to punish these people. He's ruthless, and he's a jerk. He's just a jerk. But he's paranoid. He thought people were after him. So let me give you an example of some of the stuff that he did while he was in office. So he was very upset when the Pentagon Papers got leaked. Remember, the Pentagon Papers said the whole reason we went into the Vietnam War was fake. Now, all the stuff in the Pentagon Papers actually is going to make Lyndon B. Johnson look really bad, who's a Democrat. Nixon's a Republican. He shouldn't care. Hooray, that happened, all right? Because it doesn't make him look bad. He was getting us out of Vietnam when the Pentagon Papers were leaked. However, somebody from his office is the one who leaked that to the public. He doesn't like the fact that there is somebody that leaked something to the public. So he's got to find out who it is. So Nixon, he gets a group of henchmen. That's right, henchmen like an evil villain. Nixon, his group of henchmen, he calls them, I got a picture of them here, is these guys. They're called the Plumbers, all right? So he's like, hey, I got this group of guys. They're called the Plumbers. Everybody get it? Keep in mind, he has a very high IQ. So to him, this makes a common, he thinks everybody should giggle when they're like, plumbers? That doesn't, why are they called plumbers? He goes, get it, because they're plumbers. He's like, oh, they like mess with people's poop and stuff. He was like, no, what do plumbers do? And they're like, toilets? And they're like, he's like, no, they fix leaks. And they're like, oh, he's like, it's funny, right? And they're like, no, dude, what? So he has these group of guys. He calls them the plumbers because they fix leaks. He's terrified that he's got people in his administration that would leak stuff to the public. So what he does is he finds out a guy that has leaked stuff to the public. All right, and this is such a jerk move. Once he finds out about it, instead of just firing him, he keeps that information secret when he finds out who it is. He then goes and has information dug up on this guy. He finds out this guy's going through a really rough time in his life. He's been seeing a psychiatrist. I think his marriage is falling apart and all this other stuff. So what he does, and it just shows you the type of character Nixon is when he feels like he has been wronged. He hires the plumbers to go break into this guy's psychiatrist office in the middle of the night, steal this guy's files. So all this guy's secrets that he's been telling his psychiatrist about the issues that he's going with in life, these guys break in and steal it, and then have it published in the newspaper. This guy's like deepest, darkest secrets of everything that's going on in his life, have it published in the newspaper, then Nixon fires him. Just to ruin him. I mean, emotionally, psychologically, that's just how Nixon does stuff. He's a jerk. All right, he's just a jerk. And if you wrong him, that's the type of dirty stuff that he will do. And he has his plumbers here to do it. Now, after he finds out that this guy's leaked stuff, he's like, he's really paranoid. He thinks people might be leaking more stuff to the news. So what he does is he goes through and he puts microphones in all the rooms in the White House. And everywhere in the White House, there's a microphone. And when somebody starts talking in that room, it clicks on and it records everything. So anything said in the White House gets recorded on a tape somewhere. This isn't like super secret, like you can like see the microphones in the corner. But he was like, I want to know what's going on in the White House. So I imagine he like sits in his dungeon at the end of the night. There's no dungeon in the White House, I don't think. But he sits there and like goes over these tapes and like just listens for people to like talk trash about him. That's my guess. So it's just kind of extreme, and people know all this stuff is kind of known about Nixon at the time. So all of that leads up to 1972 in this upcoming election. Richard Nixon is clearly going to win anyway, but he wants to win bigger. So the Democratic National Headquarters. So he's a Republican. He's going to run as a Republican. The Democrats are going to try to run somebody that's going to beat him in 1972. They're not going to be successful, but they're going to try. So their headquarters, like where all the top Democrats get together and like come up with a strategy on how to beat Nixon, their headquarters is in a hotel, all right, called Watergate. So the name of the hotel is Watergate, and I got a picture here. This is the Watergate Hotel. It's still there today, I believe. This is a brand new cutting-edge hotel. So it's not like in a hotel room. They have like a big conference room that the Democratic National Convention rents out. So this is where they're coming up with a strategy, how to beat Nixon, what states to really canvass, what to do what here and there. Well, all of this information would be very helpful to Nixon if he knew what they were doing. That is also extremely illegal to go like steal this information from them. That's called treason. It's like the worst. If he was to go steal something from them, all right, to give him an advantage in an election, that is like the highest crime that you can do. That's why when Donald Trump got impeached, even though he was found not guilty because there wasn't enough evidence to do it, but it is with the whole Ukraine thing, they were trying to figure out, was he, Donald Trump, manipulating the election in 2020 by trying to get dirt on Joe Biden. The reason it was illegal, they claimed, and why he ended up getting impeached, because they thought there might have been enough information here to prove it, is it appeared that he was using his power of the president by withholding money from the Ukraine in order to get enough information to win the election and hurt Joe Biden. So using his power of the president to try to win a re-election, that is like a big no-no. Pretty much what Nixon does here, but Nixon takes it much further. When Donald Trump, what he's accused of, he did this like publicly and tried to claim I didn't do it. And then maybe he didn't. Again, goes back. It's too close to look at it objectively, usually historically. Richard Nixon does it 100% shadily. He's going to hire his plumbers to break into this building in the middle of the night, all right, and wiretap all their phones, all right. So to break into the building, wiretap all their phones, and then get out of there. So now he can listen to everything that is done in the Democratic National Headquarters and be one step ahead of them. This is basically treason. However, so these guys break in the middle of the night. They break in. As they're wiretapping the phones, all right, the local security here gets tipped off. And this is a big question on who tips them off. Somebody calls in and says, hey, there's somebody breaking in down there. Go check it out. Without that phone call, they would never have known. So they go and they catch the guys in the act and they arrest the plumbers. All right. They take them to jail because they were breaking and entering. Nobody has any idea what they're doing. They're just breaking and entering. So they take them to jail. When they go to jail, they're not going to see the magistrate until the next morning where they're brought up on charges. So as they sit in jail, the jail gets a phone call from the government, like the federal government says, hey, those guys, let them go. And these are the local police. They're like, oh, okay. So they let the guys go. That's it. That's what happens. All right. Nobody knows who tipped them off. We do today. I don't know if I want to go ahead and tell you that part of the story because I may forget about it. It's a huge secret forever on who tipped off the police. They ended up finding out it is somebody in Nixon's administration, and we only found this out within the last 5 years, in present day, and within the last 5 years, because it's been a huge secret. Like, who in the world would tip them off? A guy did it, and he didn't tell anybody that he was the guy who did it until he had passed away, and it was in his will to tell his family, and his family decided to come forward with it because he was really still concerned that there could be retaliation, because even though Nixon's going to die long before 2015 or so, so we do know who it is now. It was somebody in Nixon's administration who just couldn't knew this was happening and just couldn't stand by and let it happen, but then just kept it to himself forever. So they get released. We still to this day and probably will never know who called the jail to let these guys go. All right. So they're not able to wiretap the phones. All right. And it goes through, and the 1972 elections happen, and Nixon wins big anyway. All right. So Nixon wins big. All right. I have a video clip here on this event. But keep in mind, nobody knows this happened in 1972. It's all been brushed under the rug like it never happened. I said play.
June 17th, 1972. 5 men wearing blue surgical gloves break into the Watergate office complex in Washington. Their mission? To wiretap, bug, and photograph files at the Democratic National Headquarters. The break-in was carried out in the dark of night, but had its roots in the dark side of Richard Nixon's mind. From the moment the 5 burglars were arrested, Watergate became a great detective story. Over the next 2 years, Watergate became a titanic struggle between the White House and the press.
I don't respect the type of journalism, the shabby journalism that is being practiced.
The White House and Congress.
Republicans do not cover up. Republicans do not go ahead and commit illegal acts.
All right. So you're like, wait a minute. Why are they talking about it if nobody ever knew about it? Like it was just a done thing. Well, there's 2 journalists who rightfully so have a place here in American history. 2 guys named Woodward and Bernstein. All right. They work for the Washington Post. So I got a picture of them here. That's a picture of Woodward and Bernstein. This is back in the 1970s. They're still around today, and they're super old. Oh, man, I just noticed my speaker thing here is dying. I got to change batteries. Give me 1 second. Boop. I shall return. All right, I'm back. So if I didn't fix that, next time I show the video, you would have no sound on it. So I want to make sure I noticed that. All right. So Woodward and Bernstein, this is the 1970s. Very, very, very famous for this. All right. So Woodward and Bernstein, they're kind of just reporters from the Washington Post. They're looking at people that get arrested every night, and they see that these guys had been arrested and then they had been released. All right. Then they also see there's a break-in at the Democratic National Convention. It's a really intricate story if you're like going to journalism or the history of journalism of how they followed this through. Everybody told them to give up on it. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And they just kept unraveling this story for years. So it's like 2 years now into Richard Nixon's second term in office. They are still on this story. And they start asking questions. Hey, what was this break-in? What did this happen? And everybody's like, and that's what you saw in the video. And they're like, this is stupid. Like, why are they even talking about this? A lot of the people, all right, because Republicans, Richard Nixon is a Republican. Republicans own basically the House and the Senate at the time. They are just like, why are Woodward and Bernstein trying to prove like Richard Nixon, or not Richard Nixon, just that something shady had happened? They're like, let it go. This is dumb. Da da da. Well, Woodward and Bernstein keep uncovering more and more evidence. It finally gets to the point where they uncover enough evidence where it looks like this thing might actually be connected to Nixon. Like, Nixon ordered this to happen. And, like, that's, like, so crazy to think, like, the president would waste his time to do something like that. Like, there's enough other shady people in politics that would do it. The president? Yeah, right. So, it ends up being called the Watergate scandal. Because, I really hope I said this, Watergate is the name of the hotel. All right? So, all right, so I got, what I got here? All right. So I want to, as I stutter, I want to get through here and tell you this story. I want to make sure I knew exactly what I had in your notes here so I can tell the story in its entirety. So once all this information gets presented by Woodward and Bernstein to the government, all right, they're all Republicans. They're like, Nixon clearly didn't do this. Like, why would y'all even say that? But they're like, they do have some good evidence. So Republicans are like, fine, 100% they don't believe Nixon would do this because that's just, it's silly. So when they present it to the Senate, they're like, fine, we'll just talk to Nixon about it, all right? So they're like, we can ask him, hey, did you order these guys to go break into the Watergate Hotel? All right? He's going to say no. That's it. Like, you can't prove what happened. And then they're like, wait a minute. Actually, we can prove that he's innocent because he records everything in the White House because he's super paranoid. So if he was going to order these guys to do it, which he clearly didn't, that would be on tape. And they know the exact day he would have ordered that if he had done it, which, of course, he didn't. All right. So the Senate's like, hey, I need you, Richard Nixon, to give us those tapes from that day in question just to prove that you didn't do this. Because there's nothing going to be on those tapes, obviously, because you didn't do it, and it's going to be fine. And Nixon's like, no. The moment he says no, the whole country's like, wait, what? What was that? Like, and they're like, what do you mean no? And he's like, yeah, I'm not giving you those tapes. And they're like, all right. So what he does, what the Senate does is they send the Attorney General, all right, over to the White House to get these tapes because you got to have them, all right. The Attorney General is somebody that is hired by the president. He's like the head lawyer of America, all right, or at least the administration. So the Attorney General, the Senate's like, hey, go over to the White House and grab yourself these tapes and bring them back over. I don't know why Nixon's being weird about it. He's like, all right. So he goes over to the White House. He's like, hey, Mr. Nixon, thank you for hiring me at this job and all that other stuff. And Nixon's like, yeah, that's great. How's everything going? It's like, good. He's like, hey, I need to get those tapes from you. I need to get those tapes. And Nixon's like, oh, the tapes. He's like looking around. He's like, yeah, you're fired. And fires him on the spot. If this wasn't national news already, it is. This is front page now. Nixon fires the guy just asking him for these tapes. Again, the Senate was thinking this was going to prove that Nixon was innocent because they're Republicans too. They're on his side. When he fires him, they're like, whoa, what? So when he fires the attorney general, guess who gets to appoint another attorney general? Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon looks long and hard to find somebody that will not ask him for these tapes. He finally finds somebody. He hires them. Guess what the first thing they do is? Ask him for the tapes. They're like, hey, Senate needs me to ask you for these tapes. And he's like, you're fired. Tries to fire the second guy. Congress had already passed a law because of this, saying a president can't fire somebody that's actively under investigation. So like when Donald Trump in 2019, when he was under investigation, the guy that was investigating him, while he worked for the government, and technically in any other circumstance, Trump should be able to fire him. In that situation, because of this law, Trump couldn't fire the guy that's investigating him. Literally because of what happened with Nixon. So the guy's like, yeah, you can't fire me. I'm going to need those tapes. And Nixon's like gets super worked up. And he's like, fine. Here's your tapes. And then just gives it to him. And he's like, yeah, I don't know why you had to make it so difficult. So they take the tapes back to the Senate. The Senate like puts them into the tape player. And they start listening to him. Nixon has edited these tapes to where he's like it's like phone conversations, and Nixon's like, all right, guys, and then I want you to. And there's like 5 minutes of silence. And it's like, and then after that, I need you to go and then there's like another 10 minutes of silence. Like Nixon has clearly edited these tapes. Now, here's where it gets kind of weird, and this is the big question that everybody always has. So Nixon didn't edit the original tapes. He made copies and edited the copies. He still has the originals. People ask him all the time, because he'll do interviews later on after this, and because I was innocent. Like, why did you not destroy the original tapes? Why? And nobody, it doesn't make any sense. Just like destroy them. If they don't exist, whatever. But he doesn't. So they go and they say, Nixon, give us the original tapes. And Nixon says, no, I don't have to. And they're like, what? He goes, I'm the president. I enforce the laws. I don't have to follow them. The president says he is above the law. Even though they're all on the same side, Senate, House of Representatives, the president, they're all on the same side. They're all Republicans, but the Congress goes, nope. House of Representatives and the Senate say, nah, man, that ain't how this works. You abide by the same laws as everybody else. And that was the big standoff. Nixon just said he didn't have to do what they tell him to do because he's above the law. And Congress is going to completely disagree with that. And they're like, turn him over or there's going to be consequences. And he's like, I ain't turning him over. I don't have to. So they're like, fine. We're going to have to impeach this guy. Means put him on trial for breaking. Like, he clearly has done it. I mean, everybody has turned against him. This is front page news all over the place. So the House of Representatives get together to come up with terms of impeachment. So they are getting ready to impeach Nixon, which just means they're going to put him on trial and he will be found guilty. I mean, guaranteed, because he will be. So as they're discussing terms of impeachment, like they're just getting the paperwork together to officially say he's impeached, somebody's like, hey, Nixon's on TV right now. And they're like, wait, what now? And they go turn on the TV, and there's Nixon, and he says, I quit. Like, Nixon just quits the presidency like it's Burger King. Like, middle fingers, they're all y'all, I'm out. He's like, and starting tomorrow, like, I'm quitting. Now, starting tomorrow, Gerald Ford is going to be the president. And they're like, who? So Nixon's original vice president, all right, that he had won the election with in 1972. I'm not sure if he had a different one in 68 and 72, but the guy that he had won in 1972 had already quit. The whole heat of this situation, he had dipped out. So Nixon had to grab another vice president that nobody knows because he didn't run in the election, and it's a guy named Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford, and we're going to talk about him in detail here in a minute. Gerald Ford is a guy nobody's ever heard of that just like becomes the president the next day. Like, never ran in an election. He's just going to be the president. So Richard Nixon quits the presidency. There is outrage in America about this. So technically, Richard Nixon wasn't impeached because as they were getting ready to impeach him, he quits. So can you impeach him anymore? No. Did he still commit treason in America, manipulating an election? Yes, or at least attempted to. He is still in massive trouble, right? It just doesn't affect his job as a president because he quit the presidency. So Nixon becomes the most vilified president we've ever had because he quits the presidency. But the story of Nixon is not over, but I do want to show you I got a video clip here of... That's a Watergate situation. Scroll. Here we go.
Again, proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States.
On the first Tuesday in November, voters get to say the last word at the polls.
This is 1972.
While he accidentally drops his own ballot, Nixon goes on to pick up enough other votes for the second largest landslide in American history.
At the Washington Post, the assignment to unravel it went to two young reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein.
The thing that was so extraordinary about Woodward and Bernstein is that they found out what was going on. And they did it quickly, and they did it cleanly, and they did it right.
Woodward and Bernstein got an early tip, an address book found on a burglar. The next day, Woodward spoke to a well-placed government source, the man who would eventually be known to the nation as Deep Throat.
That's the guy who we never heard about.
Would help guide
until
Woodward
later.
and Bernstein through months of unparalleled reporting. In the summer of 1973, the nation learned of the president's secret tapes.
I was aware of listening devices.
When the White House revealed there was an 18-and-a-half-minute gap on one of the Watergate tapes, the episode deeply wounded the president's credibility. The fierce battle to force the president to hand over the tapes led to Watergate's endgame.
In addition,
When the president decided to fire the special prosecutor, Archibald Cox, rather than release the tapes, the Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, resigned.
So...
Congress, with the hearings of the House of
was with my
Representatives
volume.
Judiciary Committee. That committee had to decide whether Mr. Nixon knew of the operation to cover up the truth about the Watergate burglary, and therefore whether he should be impeached. It demanded access to all White House tape recordings on the matter, a demand refused by the president on the grounds of executive privilege. August 8th, Mr. Nixon bowed to the inevitable and announced a decision unique in American history.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
Despite the resignation, admissions over the tapes, and the public sense of mistrust, Mr. Nixon never made any outright confession of wrongdoing, nor expressed any word of contrition. He tried to bring an air of triumph in his final departure in a helicopter from the White House lawn.
I, Gerald R. Ford, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. So Nixon's just quit. Gerald Ford has taken over. If you think the public's just going to ignore this, like, absolutely not. So this is the newspaper. It says Nixon resigns. He urges a time of healing. Ford will take office today. So there's like 2 years now left in Nixon's term that Gerald Ford is going to take over. Gerald Ford, nobody knows who this guy is because he wasn't even the original vice president. And Nixon had just picked him. So, looking at Gerald Ford, all right, had he started out neutral, it could have been a pretty good president. He was a relatively light guy. He was a straightforward guy, wasn't a corrupt guy. But after the Pentagon Papers, after Nixon quitting, after the Watergate thing, the trust in the government is like gone. So, anybody who's going to come into this office is going to struggle for legitimacy. Gerald Ford, he was probably the best athlete we've ever had as a president. I believe he was an All-American football player at Michigan State University when he was in college. He's a World War II veteran, very, very, very popular. So he comes in, very liked. So he comes in and he's going to take his job very seriously. All right, I got a picture of him here. Where are you? That's a picture of Gerald Ford. So Gerald Ford comes in. Hey, he's got to be liked. The thing is, though, he comes in to be the president, takes his job seriously. He's trying to be the president. He's got so many things to deal with because you're the president, all right? However, every single day, all people talk about is Nixon. That's all they talk about. What's going to happen to Nixon? They're like, yeah, he quit, but is he going to jail? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And Gerald Ford's like, hey, we got like actual real stuff to deal with. Like, I'm not worried about that right now. That'll run its course. And they're like, what do you mean run its course? No, that needs to be the priority. People just kept making Nixon the priority. Like, you got to deal with it. Like, what's going to happen? He was like, there are, like, because it's the legal system. It's going to take a while for things to happen. But people didn't want things to take a while. They wanted a resolution now. How's that going to deal with? So Gerald Ford, he's like, fine. If y'all want a resolution right now, I'll give you a resolution right now. He's pardoned. Done. Moving on. All right. He pardons Nixon. All right. Lets him off scot clean. Any crime he may have committed, can't get him in trouble for. He's like, all right, let's move forward and run the country. The whole country just gives him a stare down. It's like, did you just pardoned him? Because Nixon's been telling everybody he's above the law. He can just do whatever he wants to do. That looks like that happened. Nixon went through, did everything he wanted to, then got off scot-free. Then the belief becomes that Ford and Nixon were in cahoots together and planned this whole thing. All right? So that's why Nixon picked him as the vice president, knowing that when he quits, Ford will just hop in here and pardon him and he'll get off scot-free. That is a very, very, very strong belief at the time. So everybody hates Ford. They think he is just as corrupt as Nixon. Really looking back on it with fresh eyes and without the emotion of the time period, Gerald Ford just wanted to run the country. Gerald Ford just wanted to be the president and wanted to just eliminate all this drama and move forward. But by pardoning Nixon, everybody's just like, he gets booed at speeches. And he's very disliked because he is like assumed like being in cahoots with Nixon and can't really get anything done when he's in office. On top of all that, oh, come on, brain. You know, I get ready to say things, and then my brain just shuts down. So, on top of all that, Gerald Ford has to figure out how to win re-election here in 1976. He ain't going to. There is a massive distrust of the United States government. Massive distrust. Nobody wants to have anything to do with them. People feel like the United States government is massively corrupt. So even though Gerald Ford is a really good guy, he serves 2 years, and he is going to lose in a landslide in 1976 to a guy named Jimmy Carter. All right? Because Jimmy Carter calls himself Jimmy Carter. Gerald Ford holds a special place in American history books. This is a man who was president and never won an election. There were vice presidents who became president who didn't win re-election, but they also ran in the presidential election in which they were elected as the vice president. Gerald Ford didn't, but people just don't trust him. The trust in the government is at an all-time low at this point after the Watergate scandal and after Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon also thinks that he can run for president again and win, and he gives interviews and stuff after this. There's movies out recently called the Frost-Nixon tapes, in which he gives interviews. He's going to end up dying in the 1980s, I believe, of natural causes. Richard Nixon will. But, yeah, so that's it. It's Watergate's biggest scandal in American history. Tomorrow we're going to pick up with Jimmy Carter.